everyone, Hasboy here, and today we'll be giving you another little build project. Da 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 da! Yeah, I got a bunch of components here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to doing another little build. So, a while back you may have seen a video I made in a game called Algodoo, basically titled Tumbling Avalanche, where it was basically a box filled with a bunch of colorful spheres, well, circles, 2D, and it was slowly tumbling in an avalanche. Hence its name. Yeah, clever name is clever. Anyway, so, that was a really cool, fun little video, but I thought, why not do it in real life? So I got together a bunch of supplies, bunch of general things and mabobs and whatnots and who's its and what's its galore. As one does. So the basic idea behind this is I got this, a big lazy Susan bearing. That'll be what the whole structure rotates on. And then got some glue, just super weld for the quick stuff. And then white glue for general wood glue. And then, popsicle sticks, blocks. I find these very useful just for structure. It's going to be a lovely matte black when done. I'm looking forward to that. And the three other things I have are these. These are copper-coated steel BBs. And they are originally meant to be used in like a BB gun. But, you know what? You can buy a whole box of them for very cheap. And they're relatively small and almost perfectly spherical. So they'll do the job just fine. Perfect. Gently set you down. As I spill it all over the floor. Clean up in aisle 3. Wah wah. Anyway, I'll deal with that later. I have magnets. And then the last two things are this, a 6-speed gearbox, another Tamiya set, and I'll use this as my motorization if I get that far. I'm on a very tight timeline to try and get this done before Labor Day weekend, so yeah, wish me luck. And then lastly, we have these things here. Big canvas boards, which this will act as basically the main structural element. Basically, the idea is I'll have one as my base, and then the lazy Susan bearing in between, sandwiched between, and then another one on top, and all the marbles go inside. That's a plan. Don't know if it'll work, but hey. Here's trying. Anyway, catch you in a moment, and we'll get on with things. Alright, so now we'll need some way to power the model, which is where this comes in. This is a Tamiya 6-speed gearbox. High efficiency. Yeah. If we look on the back here, we'll see that... It's upside down. If we look on the back here, we'll see that it's got a bunch of different gear ratio variations that we can choose from. But in reality, there's only really one true option. If we do this configuration, which uses all the gears, we get, what's that say? 1,300.9 to 1. Wow! Such ratio. And let's open her up, see what we got. Well, would you look at that? They did the hard part for me. Alright, so through the magic of, I did it like a week ago, I've already put this together. Now, if we zoom in on it, we'll see that there's a few slight differences. So, essentially the way it works is there's a blue gear there, which you can also see from this angle, and that drives a yellow gear, and that just drives this whole chain of blue gears, eventually ending in the orange gear. Pretty simple, pretty basic, just a bunch of compound spur gears. But something eagle-eye viewers may notice, and people who put together lots of Tamiya sets, I don't know, I like the name Tamiya better, even though it's probably Tamiya. I don't know, whatever. This is not a standard Tamiya motor. No. You see, the motor that actually came with the set is this little guy here. And, well, the main reason why I swapped out the motor is because this claim of high efficiency is a bold-faced lie. Lies, I tell ya. And let me prove it. Alright, so in order to show how much power a particular motor draws, I have this. This is my power meter. Essentially what it is a whole bunch of analog meters. So we have voltage down here from 0 to 15, and then we have 3 amp meters, which each having a different range, 0 to 100, 0 to 500, and 0 to 5. And I can control which amp meter I want to use using this selection switch over here. Then we have an input plug on this side, and an output wire with a plug on it over here. And for the test, I'll just be using 2 AA batteries, which I believe will be the setup I'll use for the funnel thing. I want it run nice and slow, so let's not go crazy with the power. And yeah, as you can see, we have about 2.5 volts, which is exactly what we would expect. So, first of all, just doing a dry load or like no load at all. Let's quickly wire it up. Alright, so now that I hooked the motor up and I got the power meter here, all I need to do is hook it up. And away it goes. But most notably, if we look at the amps, it's drawing about 200 milliamps, which is quite a bit. Quite a bit of, and this is no load. At only 3 volts, do the math, that's a fair amount of power. Now, if we do a direct comparison, the motor I have hooked up here, granted it is hooked up with gears, so there will be a little bit of a load on it, just a tiny bit from just friction, but that should not make a huge difference. Here we see it going. And if we look at the amount of power draw, yeah, less than 100, half the power draw. Now, you might make a valid argument, but okay. You might make a valid argument saying, hey, maybe this motor has twice the torque, or twice the RPM. You know, those are fair arguments, and let's say you're right, this has twice the torque and or twice the RPM. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. After it goes through all of these gears, I don't need twice the torque. This already is producing way more torque than I ever could need. To turn around my little model, yeah, that's just fine. And twice the speed, that's actually a detriment. I want it to spin slowly. I want it to just crawl along. So having a slower motor actually is beneficial here. And so yeah, that's the main reason I swapped out the motor. In truth, actually, I have a whole smattering of different motors I could have chose from. I got these guys here. You'll recognize this motor from my pulley contraption. Right here. Nice, small, low energy motor. Perfect for models like this. got this one, which is actually a 5-pull. The motor shaft is a bit thick, though. This guy, very low energy, but also low torque. I think I'm doing something wrong with this. I don't know. Got some pre-built geared motors like this, with a little gearbox. Sort of like this. Thing of beauty, ain't it? Oh, and also, because I cannot help myself and I love gears too much, also got these two, which are other Tamiya sets, which feature lots of gears in them, but not nearly as many gears as this one, which is why I went with this one. This one has a best gearing ratio. I will admit, I also was half tempted to use something like one of these, a Tamiya planetary gears. This one's been cut open because reasons, because I want to show it off, but it turns out cutting it open makes it work not very well. Wah wah. But yeah, in the end, I decided I'm happy as with this. I think this will do just fine for this particular project. So, let's carry on. Alright, so it's been a few days, and I've turned this, which is basically just a blank canvas, into this, which is basically a slightly less blank canvas. Yay! So, what I basically did is all around the edge here, not sure, there we go. Autofocus is gonna have a hard time. Yay. Sorry about that. But, basically what I did was I got a bunch of popsicle sticks and laid them along the perimeter and just glued them down with basic white glue. Super simple. And so, yeah, from here, I can just simply add some marbles. And here I have a clear acrylic sheet. Place it over top. And, haha! They can roll freely. So the next major step is I'm going to have to drill some holes in the corners and mount this down. I might even put some screws in the edges centers as well. We'll have to see how that pans out. I haven't really worked with acrylic before, and from what I understand, it has a reputation for being a little bit on the brittle side, so hopefully I don't crack it. Right, moving along. On the back side, I've also added these little standoffs, just to add a little bit of thickness here, because I have this, my Lazy Susan bearing, which actually will fit like this, and, yeah, the actual screw holes are, well, they're here. I'll be using these holes, and they're actually a little bit further in from the edge than the actual wood perimeter. So I need something for the screw to bite into, hence why I have these standoffs. Ideally, they would be the same height as this wood, but it's what I had on hand and whatnot. Technically, I actually assembled this from 4 individual wood cubes, which are basically just from, like, this. So, yeah, whatever. It works. And so, yeah, the idea is I'm gonna mount this something like that. Screw, screw, screw. Bada bing, bada boom. Then take another piece, mount it on like that, and there we go. We got a sandwich. Then from this canvas piece, I don't know, I'm gonna add some sort of framework along the side here. Probably something a little bit more substantial than this. I'm sort of winging it. But yeah, so add a framework, and then the whole thing flips around, and we'll just be sort of sitting up at a slant, sort of like so. Yeah, close enough. You get the basic gist. And so yeah, that'll be everything. I'll paint the whole thing black. It'll look super lovely. But that is merely the static portion. This needs to be a dynamic model. I want it to move. I like to move it, move it. So how am I going to do that? Well, that is where this comes in. Ba-ba-ba. We've already discussed the motor unit previously, and yeah, the motor will live somewhere here-ish. But I'll need some way to get energy from the motor to the actual work area, the actual, like, avalanche area, and make it rotate. And so I'll have a length of chain, if I can untangle the damn thing. I swear, these things are worse than headphone cords. But yeah, basically I'm gonna have the chain wrapping around the perimeter here and be driven off a little cog there. Now, the keen-eyed among you might notice a slight problem with this plan. This is a square. Generally, you want things going around in circles. You want a circle. I mean, okay, there is a roller rotor, which, you know, certain circumstances will work, but more often than not, you'll want a circle, which is where... excuse me, army coming through. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Where... oops. This comes in. Yeah. Doesn't fit in shot. Well, you can see one end of it. Yeah, so this is a long-ass plank of wood I got, and let's see, measuring tape. Whoops. It measures 1.5 by 3/4, which inches, which is what? About 3, 6, 7, 37 by 20 millimeters and 19 millimeters, give or take. Close enough. And so basically what I'm going to be doing is cutting this down into lengths and get out of here. Alright, cutting those things down into lengths and then adding them to... hang on, I'm going to change the focus. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that down into shorter lengths and then add them to this here. And I'm going to build up on all sides, basically large blocks. And from there I'm going to have to literally cut the corners and then round it off into a circle. And yeah, then the chain will go around that. And then I'll add these. This is a whole bunch of little nails, which it's usually supposed to be like for hanging picture frames on walls and whatnot. And I figure I'm going to use them as little pegs that I'm going to stick around, and the chain will use that as sprocket spokes. Speaking of sprockets... right. One problem I have right now is this motor unit doesn't really have any end on it. I mean, it does, but nothing terribly useful right now. It did come with a few adapters, like this little plate here. But ultimately, I need something that can engage with the chain, which is where this comes in. This is an old bicycle derailleur, and more importantly, it's got these little cogwheels on them. But, the more I think about this, the less happy I am with this idea. Like, these teeth are pretty dang small. There's not that much bite. They're very short, very stubby. They're cut off. And if I want this to be reliable and I want this to engage the chain and one, not skip. Like, I don't want the thing to turn and the chain just skips across the teeth. And two, and more importantly, this is going to be basically sitting horizontally with gravity pointing that way. So if it's going to be sitting more or less horizontally, I don't want the chain to sag and then fall off the cogwheel, which again, having large spikes, having a large teeth on the wheel would help mitigate. So out with the derailleur and in with, well, I don't really have any good thin plywood on hand, so I got another piece of canvas. Whoops. And basically what I'm going to do is butcher this thing, remove the side plates, and just use a center piece of canvas. And in theory, I can craft my own little sprocket. I did the math, I know the dimensions. It's just a case of crafting it. Will I be able to do it in time? Well, one way to find out. Anyway, so that's the plan for right now. I'll update you when I got more things done. Alright, well, good news everyone. Time for another update. And I got this. Ta-da! Oh, man. That thing's getting big. Like, I knew the project was going to be a little bit on the larger size, but, it barely fits in frame. Yeah, so as you can clearly see, well, it's clear. Maybe you can't see, but whatever. I got the acrylic sheet in place, and I did decide to put the edge screws in after all. Turns out it did crack, but only along the edges and only on the outside of the screws. So it terminates when it enters a hole, so hopefully there's not going to be any creeping crack that grows along this material, so fingers crossed. But longevity aside, for right now, I just need it to work, which is maybe not the best strategy, but right now I'm on a time budget, so I need to just get it done. So, right, it's in place, 8 screws, 4 in the corners, 4 on the edges. Bada bing, bada boom, great. And as you'll notice, I got these massive blocks along the side, which make it look vaguely like a pixelated flower. Which, not intended, but, you know, I'll take it. For now, at least. I will be trimming these down, so, yeah. And if we can flip on the back side, we'll see that the other frame is here. I got these. Basically, I put more blocks here just for the screws. Underneath this, there's a screw that, like in between the Lazy Susan is mounted. And interesting thing, so from the Lazy Susan, there's a set of screws going this way through the Susan into these blocks. And then there's another set of screws going down the other way into, well, the blocks in this sheet, which I showed you a little bit earlier. But interesting problem is, if we have screws coming from the center and going both ways, well, yeah, can't exactly get to them now, can I? That is where this comes in. The designers of the Lazy Susan, clever bastards, decided to put a little hole in the part, just big enough to fit your screwdriver in. Makes sense? So it means that this assembly has to go in. I have to take this whole section off from the Lazy Susan first, and then I can get at this section and the Susan comes off. So yeah, assembly and disassembly is going to be a bit of a faff, but I only have to do that, what, at least one more time? I'll have to take it apart to paint it, and then put it back together. And I think that's it. I might need to do it another time if I forget something. I sometimes forget something. Anyway, right. The other tricky thing is, how do I turn this into a circle? Well, it's on a bearing, you goof. So to just rough it out, I added these semicircular pencil marks just to indicate roughly where I need to be removing material. And the way I did that is, well, this section is the same square as what the actual working area of the model is. So basically, I can use this corner as a reference, and I just had a pencil. I simply did this and scribed a circle. Convenient. Also, I'll be using a belt sander, and I can just simply mount this in such a way where I can just simply rotate this element, holding the bottom element still. It'll be flipped over, of course, but rotate one element, hold the other one still, and that, in theory, will give me a perfect circle, perfectly concentric to the bearing. Yay! I love when things just work out. So, moving along, the other major thing which I've been working on is the chain. Well, not the chain itself, but the way to drive the chain. I made a cogwheel. The cog, it lives. And it just fits on like so. And yeah. Took a little bit of work to actually make this wheel, but I'm fairly happy with the way it came out. Now, it is just made out of plywood, out of that canvas I showed you earlier. Ideally, I would have loved to have made it out of metal, but this will have to do for now. I might make it out of metal in the future. I might not. I'm lazy. Who knows? And the last thing to quickly mention, still work in progress, is I have a bunch of these little wooden board elements, and I'm going to be gluing them together to create the legs for the base. That is still work to be done, so not sure exactly how I'm going to do that. Also, I'll need some way to mount this motor to the back. That is something else which I'll have to worry about. One thing which I will not worry about, at least not yet, after I'll deal with it later, is powering it. So to power it, I'll just use this simple two AA battery box with a plug on one end, and then I'll use this plug on the other end and a pair of alligator clips. Snip, snip. And I'll just clip it onto the motor and basically just have it sort of like this, where it's plugged in, one lead here, and then the other lead here. And you can see it slowly turning. I'll actually flip it around having, whoops. I'll actually flip it around having the cog on this side, and it'll be mounted sort of like this. And yeah, that'll just sit on the desk while this sits attached to the framework. And to turn it off, I just simply unclip it, or unplug it. Janky? Yes. Incomplete? Definitely. I definitely want to add some switch mechanism like I did to the pulley, and maybe even a power plug for external powering. I might redo the wiring. I'm not happy with the way that I have to plug it in and turn the switch on to power it. I think I'm going to have to rewire that somehow, but I'll deal with that later. Right now, I just want it to work, so janky alligator clips will have to do for now. Anyway, I'll meet you back here when I got more done. Ta-da! Da-da-da-da! Here she is, folks. Well, mostly done. It's been a few days. Mainly because I kinda got a little bit ill. Oops. So,
long story short, me and some of my friends went to a convention. We had lots of fun. I met lots of cool people. I dressed up as my favorite internet troll. We had a great time. And then a day or two later, I got sick. Oops. Well, that's how life happens sometimes. And, good news is, the day before and after the convention, I got a lot done. So, I had a little bit of a breathing space, and I was able to take 2 days off just being sick. But, now I'm back into the swing of things, and I got this. Da 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 da! And yes, I realize it looks a lot like artists, like one of those animation stands that rotates, like you'll see in old-fashioned, like behind-the-scenes Disney videos. But yeah, basically this is it. So I showed you the main. I'm not even sure what I would call this. Like the main tumble zone. That's a stupid name. Note to self: think of a more clever name for this space. I'll workshop it. Leave it in the comments below. Right, but so yeah, I got the main thing done. As you can see, I've rounded the outside. Nice, nice. I've also integrated the motor with the chain, which, yeah, if I can find the batteries. It works! And so, as you can clearly see, it spins. And also makes a lot of noise. One of these two things is desirable. The other, not so much. I'll let you guess which one is the desirable one. So yeah, it does work. It spins rather slowly, which is intentional. I want it to spin slowly. Although I did up the voltage to 5 volts instead of the 2.5 I initially planned. Yeah, that's the other problem. The chain kind of gets caught on the spikes. To give the outer wheel some traction, I added nails all along the outside perimeter. I showed you already. It's these little guys here. But anyway, I added them all along the perimeter. Unfortunately, the heads do have a tendency to bind the chain up a bit, so I'll have to work on that. Nothing a little filing can't solve. The other tricky thing I had to contend with is making sure the chain always stayed on the teeth. Because, like I said, gravity's working down this way, and so the natural tendency of the chain, because it's bicycle chain, it needs to be flexible. It needs to have a little bit of give in this direction, which is actually a bad thing in this case. I want it to be nice and rigid and square. So what I had to do is I mounted. Okay, you'll never see this, but yeah, perfect. If you can see, I mounted the motor at a slight angle like this, so the take-up of the sprocket is low, and then it releases the chain high with a slant, and so the chain just follows like an arc. Follows an arc, and then naturally guides back onto the pins here. You know what? Shush. As far as the legs go, I can flip her over. Nothing too much to talk about the legs. Basically, just gluing more popsicle sticks together. I created 2 of these to create like an L. Added a corner block in each, and then simply glued them onto the base here. I also have corner blocks in here as well. And just to be extra sure its rigidity, I've added these triangular bracings here and here. That way they don't flop. But even without them, they're still plenty stiff. So as long as I don't drop it, I should be fine. Foreshadowing. I hope not. But yeah, so pretty happy with the way it's turned out. Only major problem is it's still raw wood. It's not been coated with anything other than my sweat, blood, and tears. Okay, only 2 of those things. But still, I'll let you decide which are the important 2. But still, I promised I would paint it black. And it's yet to be painted black. Also, you may notice a distinct lack of marbles. They're right here. Alright, so how does Tony do this again? Let's see. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Did it work? Oh, yep. Got a few. It makes it all look so easy. I'll just have to manually load them in by hand. But anyway, now that at least some are in, we can watch them tumble. This may take a little while. Oh, there's one. And there they go. Yeah, this will be a lot more impressive. Quiet, you. Yeah, this will be a lot more impressive when there's more than just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6? I'm gonna have to call Tony again. He does this better than I. Anyway, yeah. So, because I don't have time for parlor tricks, I'm just gonna do it the old-fashioned way. So, bear with. So yeah, right. So the plan is to paint this. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have enough time. Fun fact, the event that I'm going to is tomorrow. And it's like 1:30 in the morning. Don't ask. Yeah, I'm a little tight on time right now, so I'm opting out to just paint the center section black and leave everything else just raw wood for now. That, and also, I kind of have a change of heart. I don't know what color I want this. I thought I was going to paint everything black, but the more I thought about it, the less happy I was with that idea. So, I don't know. I'll sit on it for a while, think about it. Maybe I'll do like a stain, or maybe I'll do like a clear coat or something. I don't know. Something. I want it looking nice. Because half the things I make should look nice, because they look ugly. Well, I mean, it's a lot harder to show off something that looks like crap. So, and I'm an egotist. I love showing off. Hence why you're watching this video. Anyway, so yeah. I'll meet you back here and probably after the show. So, see you then. Hello! And we are back. It's been a little while. About a week. Technically a week and a half. Reasons. But, basically, yeah. The show went well. Thanks for asking. I appreciate your curiosity. Here's my full display of items. As you can see, I've made quite a few in the past. I hope I can make videos of them sometime. I make no promises. So, if you don't see a video on any of them in the next 5 years, go ahead and pester me in the comments. It boosts engagement. Anyway, so, right, so here we are. Also, if you're wondering why it's been over a week, I'm lazy. I'm lazy. You know how much effort I put into building this thing? More than I would like. And, then I had all of Steam era to do and present for like 4 days. It's exhausting. There's a lot happening. So I took a much needed break. And then I could not stop taking the break over the weekend. And then Monday came and went. And here we are. So, oops. Anyway. Point is, here it is. Not done, but it is working. Allow me to demonstrate. Oh, and one other thing, very quickly, one other thing. Oh, I'm so excited. Ooh, something cool I got. A power brick. Okay, maybe I'm the only one who's excited about this. It is literally just a power brick. 5 volts DC power plug, same as everything else I use. The other one plugs into my wall, so perfect. Oh, and this thing can go up to 6 amps, which, I'm not sure if this can handle 6 amps, but apparently it's rated for 6 amps, which, considering the logic gate circuits I normally build, that is way more than I will ever need. So, if I start drawing more than 6 amps, be concerned. Anyway, let's plug it in and see how it works. Ta-da! Also, I added some paper in the background for a little better contrast. Yeah, I added some paper in the background for contrast. Much better. And as you can see... Hey! Let's see if we can get a closer shot. So yeah, that's basically what it does. It slowly turns and it tumbles and avalanches. Success! Alright, enough of that. I said enough. Anyway, so, right. Will you stop interrupting me? Right, so, basically, yeah, this is functionally done. Aesthetically, it's not done. Functionally, it's also not done. Quick addendum, I made a mistake. I still have more to do. Lasai. So, right. Functionally, it's halfway done. Mostly done. Somewhat done. It's presentable-ish. Well, technically it has been presented, so... check. I will say, though, that, surprisingly works well. Too well. But anyway, but yeah, it worked surprisingly well. Like the little nails around the perimeter to hold the chain in place did take a little bit of minor tweaking, a little fine tuning, making sure sometimes the nail heads were catching the chain and so the chain sort of snagged up, but nothing a little bit of percussive encouragement wouldn't solve. AKA beat it to hell with a hammer. So, yeah. Also, a little bit of abrasive filing also helps a bit. And the other thing is my homemade little wooden cog at the top here, technically sprocket, also worked really well. It's a little dirty now. The chain did come with a bit of grease and oil from the factory, so I'll have to clean that up, make it look nice and presentable. But yeah. It worked surprisingly well. even the little plastic gears inside the motor box also was surprisingly robust. Now, that's over just one weekend, technically 4 days. So I guess 2 weekends, the equivalent of 1.5. Like Monday and Friday were kind of slow, so who's counting? Apparently I am, I guess. Anyway, point is, it held up. It worked reliably. Things did not break on me, and the chain, I won't say it never jumped. It did jump once, but I was being stupid. I was pushing its limits. I was seeing how far I can bend things before things start breaking. So my fault, totally my fault. But when I was not being stupid, the chain worked stupidly reliably. I could just let it run. It kept running. I could walk away, come back, and the thing was still working perfectly. No problems, no complaints, never jammed up on me, never broke anything, never derailed. Hallelujah. Works first try. That is a good omen. Like, I was so worried about the chain like sagging and falling off its sprockets or getting jammed up or in something, or worse yet, like something gets caught in it and the motor fights it and just snaps itself to pieces because the motor doesn't care. The motor doesn't know, oh hey, I'm jammed up, I should probably stop. No, the motor's like, oh hey, I'm a motor, I'm gonna turn. Oh, was that a heavy load? Guess I'm gonna muscle through it. So thankfully it did not come to shove out of the way. So that's great. So now the question is, well, what's next? Well, glad you asked, because there's 3 things I need to do. 4 things I need to do. First thing is, well, mechanically it works. Electrically, I'm still using jumper wire leads, for crying out loud. So, yeah, I mean, it works as a temporary solution, but that's the thing. Temporary. Like, yeah, no, that, like, in a pinch, that's fine, but I want it to be nice, so I don't know exactly what I'm planning on doing. I want to have, similar to my other model here, which, by the way, I switched around, but I'll talk about that some other time. Maybe not. You know what? Okay, fine. I'll talk about it right now, very quickly. So this model, which I made a video on earlier, link in the description. Unfortunately, the original elastic bands that I used on it dried out, so I had to get new bands. Problem is, the new ones were more slippery than the originals, so that high gear ratio, or like the low gear ratio, where it was the second video did not work. It was slipping too much, so I had to revert back to the way it was in the first video. So now it's back to about 14 million to 1. Yay! But yeah, so I want to do something similar to this, where I got a switch, a power plug, some battery holder somewhere around here. Probably switch somewhere out here or something, maybe on the side. I don't know. And definitely some place for a power plug because, it's nice to be able to plug it into external power. By the way, I also had this running there. It was also lovely. And so that's a plan for it electrically. Battery, power plug, switch, and wiring. Boom. The next thing to do, next thing to do is to protect the wood. Right now it's just raw wood. That's fine, but it'll age eventually. It'll get turned gray and bland and just bleh. So I need to make something to protect it. Now, I mentioned last time originally I wanted to paint it all black. I had a change of heart. The more I think about it, the more I settle on the idea, I think I'm going to stain it. It's going to look like one of these models. And yeah, I'm just gonna use that same brown stain and just paint everything in stain, except for the main except for the main turntable area. The main background area will stay black, and actually the borders itself, the top like viewing surface area right here, I think I'm going to paint white, just to give it a little bit more contrast, a little pop, a little pizzazz. So that's the next thing. Uh, After that, I want to make a proper video on this with the marbles and the camera setup and really nice and pretty and all that. So, in order to do that, I also want to color code them because, again, I'm trying to recreate that video but in real life. Thing is, in that video, you start with these bands of color and then they slowly mix around and, you know, fun little entropy experiment. I want to do the same, so I need to make these colorful. And I think the easiest way to do that is spray paint. I'll just get 6 cans of paint of each different color and then separate them into groups and then paint each one separately. And then gently and carefully set them into neat rows, put everything together, get the camera rolling, then go, pray I don't set anything up, and pray I don't accidentally scramble everything before it's time, because, oh geez, trying to organize these ball bearings. I'm not looking forward to a take 2. But until then, I'll leave you with this, so, yeah. See you then. And we are back. And ain't it beautiful? Now, granted, some time has passed between then and now. It is, well, it's late October. Oops. Yeah, I seem to have found myself in a time slip. Does anyone remember how to do a time warp again? I keep forgetting. Anyway, regardless, ignoring the fact that time keeps on slipping, yeah, aesthetically, it is done! Yay! Milestone achieved! And can I just say, I think it looks gorgeous. I love the way it turned out. We got this nice sort of shiny, sort of matte gloss, or it's like semi-gloss for the outside edge. It's got this nice deep reddish brown, and then the main area itself is a matte black. Got some white on the perimeter on the frame. You know, gotta get your white walls. And something that no one else will ever appreciate, I did the entire back of it too. On top of that, I also did the frame. Same thing here, and if we flip her over, same thing on the back side as well. So yeah, took a little while to stain and clear coat, but I think it looks really nice. With that said, don't look too hard. I'm not exactly a professional at this. If you look carefully, you'll definitely find lots of tiny little imperfections, little drips here and there, little smudges. I don't claim to be an expert at finishing, but hey, you know, I think it looks good enough. It gets the job done. Right, moving on. So the other thing which I need to work on is the electronics. Now, in the last segment, I thought about having maybe a power switch here and maybe have like a power plug somewhere else or something. I eventually decided just the easiest way to mount everything is just right here along the back. And so the battery box will go here, holding 4 AA's, then the power plug down here, a power switch over here, and then of course a motor over here. And yeah, that seemed to be a pretty simple and straightforward way of mounting everything. And yeah, same basic technique I used everywhere else. Just 2 popsicle sticks for this board, and then 2 vertical sticks here just to join everything together. Simple, effective. moving on, what would be a tumbling avalanche without some marbles? Come here. Now in Technicolor. Ta-da! Let's see, we've got red. Gotta be gentle with these, don't want them to go all over the heck. Orange. Yellow. I'm running out of table space. Green. Blue. You get the point. And then purple. Or is that lavender? Maybe violet. And one of them. And so yeah, as I said before, I spray painted them. Yeah, just simply spray painted over the copper. Now, it did take a few coats to get them more or less evenly coated. I also had to roll them around a few times while they were drying to make sure they didn't stick together too much. So, that was, a chore. Not gonna lie. But got it done in the end, and I'll admit, I'm actually impressed. For a while, I legitimately thought that I would have some trouble with the paint sticking. That, I've never tried to paint copper before, and there might have been a tiny bit of grease on these. I'm not sure if it's rubbed away by now or whatnot. I did try to clean them, but I'll just say this, I'm impressed that the paint is sticking as well as it does, especially considering that the whole point of these things is to tumble around and bounce against each other, which does not sound like an environment ripe for paint sticking. It sounds perfect for paint chipping. So, yeah, so far so good. They just need to last half an hour in my tumbler, so that should be fine. Now, whatever I do, do not drop these. Right, as far as the electronics go, nothing's changed here. I can quickly show you the cog wheel. I also, there we go. I also stained and varnished this as well. And same as the others. Really nicely, just looks really nice. So I'm pretty happy with that. One thing I will say, fun little anecdote. So while I was planning on using the little BBs, I thought to myself, okay, what if the paint doesn't stick? Or what if the paint doesn't look nice? Or what if something else happens that, you know, for one reason or another, the little copper-coated BBs just won't work? I need a backup plan. That's when I was browsing my local hardware store and I found, wait a second, next to the copper BBs, they sell slightly bigger plastic ones. And so I got these. I found them in 4 bright colors. 3 of them. There we go. 3 of them were red, white, and blue, which came in this container. And then in this bottle came the green ones. And so, yeah, spent way longer than I probably should sorting through. Like, they were mixing this all together, so I had to sort them out manually. But as a bonus, the label says free inside, bonus. And has a little picture of a BB gun. And I'm thinking, okay, so what? You know, got to send away for it in the mail, like one of those old, like, cereal boxes, and, you know, 2 weeks later in the mail you get a crappy little toy gun. No. It literally came inside the container. So, yeah. Now I have a BB gun. Yay! And right. So yeah, the plan is, if the original marbles did not work out, I would have these guys as backup, because they're solid plastic all the way through. Only catch, they're bigger. I don't remember what the exact size of the smaller ones are, but these are 6mm. Hang on, I can measure.
forgive me for mixing my units. The only accurate measuring device I have on hand is this caliber, which is imperial. So I'll put a conversion on the screen. But so the other BBs, the tinier ones, are 172 thou. Granted, that is with the coating of paint on, so not sure how thick the paint is, but let's say 172 thou. So, whereas, whoops, these little guys are, let's double check, 234 thou, give or take. I'll put the conversions on screen. But, yeah, needless to say, bigger. Which does come at the risk of them not even fitting inside my machine, because I have a limited amount of space between the bottom of the arena and the top clear plastic. And if these were too big, they'll just get stuck between the two and don't work. I tested it. Good news, they just barely fit. I might need to add a few shims to make sure everything plays nicely. But they do fit. They do fit. And so, yeah, this will be my backup plan. I will say, though, I do wish they came in more colors. Like, don't get me wrong, white is nice, but red, green, and blue, they're fine, but no yellow, no orange, no purple, you know. And so, yeah, she's looking nice. All I need to do is put Humpty Dumpty back together, add some electrical wiring, and she'd be done. Yay! See you in the next couple of months. Wah wah. It turns! Alright, so good news. I figured out this whole time paradox shenanigan thingies, and in doing so, it's only been 3 days. Yay! And what you see before you is the pretty sure I'm almost done, pretty darn close to being complete, final machine. Ain't it a beauty? Yeah, I put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and, well, I don't know, the King's horses and the King's men did a pretty damn good job. So, I also hooked up the electricals. So right now I have it running off of my power adapter. And yeah, so I have it run out of the power adapter. A little toggle switch there. A battery box that can hold 4 AA's, batteries sold separately. And of course, the motor. No longer with alligator clips. If we flip her over, I can show you the electricals on the bottom side. And basically, it's the same thing as my pulley contraption. So, very quickly, you got the battery, which then leads to the power plug, to the switch, to the motor, then to the other side of the switch, and then back to the battery. And it's done this way so when you plug something in, it overrides the battery, and so the batteries are not used, and only the power is coming from the plug. Whereas if you disconnect the plug, power is coming from the battery, and both the battery and the plug are overwritten by the switch. Simple. And yeah. Oh, one other quick thing. I added these little rubber feet to the bottom of the machine as well, both the front and back. The only issue is, well, the bottom of this is flat. Yeah, the bottom of this is flat, but when it sits on a surface, it sits like this on an angle, meaning that really only the corner of the foot is making contact with the table or any other surface I'm having to sit on. So, yeah, we'll see how long the feet will last long term if having them sort of being pressed up against a corner like this would like force them to slide off, or make the glue fail or anything, or wear out just the corner of the foot. I don't know. We'll see how things change over time. If I have to do this again, so be it. I can rip this off and then put some new feet on when the time comes. But for now, this works. And now all I have to do is put on the colored marbles, put on the front plate, and yeah, we are done. And there you have it, folks. My tumbling avalanche is complete. Da 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 da. And ain't she a beauty? Well, I think so. Nothing like tumbling around a bunch of Skittles. Although I would not recommend tasting this particular rainbow. Bit on the crunchy side. But yeah. All is done. Maybe it would help if I unplug it before I try to do the 360. But, yeah. Electronics are done, the wiring is done, the chain is done. It's nicely stained. Got a clear plastic on top. The marbles are very colorful. They tumble. Everything is great. Everything is peachy. No problems to be seen here. Not at all. No sorry. Okay, confession time. So, I set this up, and I had all the colors nicely laid out. Bands of color. And I go to test it, and... you up, script. Roll a clip. Damn it. Alright, so, did you notice what went wrong? Well, for those unobservant, the purple and blue layers rode all the way up to the side, and then all the way up the top, and all the way back down the other side again. Wah wah. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm guessing that the spray paint was still a little bit sticky, even though it's been literal weeks since I painted them, so I don't know. But I did have a solution. Sidewalk chalk. Yeah, just regular sidewalk chalk. Really any chalk would do, but I had this on hand. Reasons. And so, yeah, I basically... Yeah, I basically took... Okay, so after the failed attempt, I took everything... Well, I took the front plate off. I very carefully took out all the marbles one by one. Okay, 2 by 2. And... yeah, sorting them was... I mean, not as bad as I feared, but also not brilliant. It was a thing. I got there in the end. So I sorted them out, and I put them back on these little paper plate trays. And you can see I added a dusting of chalk. I just rubbed it on, then rolled it around like I was panning for gold, and then poured them back in, made nice and neat layers, and second time was the charm. Nice. And so, yeah, it was so fun, I did it twice. Yeah, not sure what the release schedule will look like, but I did one with the layers horizontally, and then, at least as of recording, I also did a second attempt where I had them as vertical bands to see the difference. And so, yeah, I think personally of the two, I like the horizontal bands better. It made such a beautiful pattern about one rotation later. You had like these stripes like radially outwards. Like, okay, that is cool. That is really cool. I love that look. Um the other one, you can see it's still somewhat organized. Red, purple, green, with yellow all over. Wait, that's not a newspaper. And so, yeah, entropy is a lot slower with this version than with the original. So, you know, there's that. Uh, but yeah, all told, I'm really happy with the way this build came out. It works. It works really well. Like I said, the motor and chain setup has been working flawlessly. I was able to run this a whole weekend and no issues whatsoever. The chain never jumps, the chain never falls off. The marbles, they just tumble around nicely. They do occasionally stick a little bit, even when they were not painted. Like, there's a few stuck to the ceiling for some reason. I could add more chalk, maybe. I I don't know what the deal is, but you know what? Whatever. Nitpick, nitpick. Don't care. The majority of them tumble, and that's all that matters. If there's a few stragglers along the perimeter, so be it. And, yeah. And with all that said, thanks for joining me on this epic journey of, well, not really discovery, just doing a thing because, I felt like it. And on that note, you have a great one, folks. I have no idea what my future projects will entail, but, stay tuned. There might be something interesting. Or, I might just get bored and do something else. Anyway, you folks have a fantastic rest of your eternities. And, yeah. Take care, see you around, and goodbye. Now, where's the off button?